Good morning, evening, afternoon to wherever you are in the world. And today we're back with episode 4, I believe, of Author's Purpose. And we are here with Riggles.
R-
Um, and we're here with Riggles. Could you please?
Sorry.
It's okay. Could you please tell us about yourself?
Um, I am Riggs. I'm 21. I'm from South Africa, and I'm a university student right now. That's yeah.
That's exciting. My bad. I got you wrong. I got your name wrong. It's Riggs.
It's okay. Yeah, you can call me Riggles101 or Riggs, whatever you want.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't like when people get my name wrong, so I don't try to get people's name wrong.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So I always ask this questions. These are the general questions that we get into. But I wanted to know, why
Yeah.
did you decide to come onto my podcast today?
I actually just thought it would be something fun to do. Also, a way to kind of talk more about the book because I don't really get to do that. Um, what I put out is all people really get to see. And sometimes you don't get to explain things or talk about things. And I think this was just a great way of doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, I know the audience, if you follow me, you have heard this countless time and time again, but I want to tell the authors this. Yes, I started this podcast because I feel like it's a negative stigma towards books that are online and that doesn't have a printed copy version. I have a whole bookshelf
True.
over there, and these are like famous books, All the Right Places, They Both Die at the End, um, Grave Mercy, the Hunger Games trilogy, and like
Yeah.
we honor these books so much, but we never really truly see the worth in online books like on Wattpad and Inket creators. And I feel like it's some amazing works out there, so I go find them and present them to my audience.
Oh, that's really nice. That's actually a really great idea. I think you're right. Wattpad books don't get lots of recognition. They get made fun of, and
Mhm,
sometimes authors work really hard to make these works for everyone to read, and they just don't get that kind of recognition that they do deserve.
mhm.
So this is a really great idea.
Thank you. Um, Let us move on to the next question. This is also a very general question, but what is your main inspiration slash inspirations for writing Apollo?
Apollo started as a story that was inspired by a prompt, and from there, I just kind of extended and just made it the big story that it is today. And that was actually inspired a lot by my own issues that I was having in my life at the time. And that's where I got the inspiration to make Apollo what it is today.
Mhm. Um, and I totally feel that because I feel like
Yeah.
many authors in the past that I've interviewed, we always talk about how writing is a means to express ourselves, and sometimes we can even get vulnerable. Like we feel like, "Ooh, is this
Yeah.
is too much?" Because we the audience don't know or the readers don't know that these are our experiences, but we know. And even if we know it, it's kind of like, well, we pushing this out there and to see all of this positive feedback, it's just
Yeah.
kind of a warming thing. You get this little weird
Y-
gut feeling.
Yeah, I think the best part about it though is when you kind of get that feedback that says, "Oh, me too," because it's like I'm not the only person
Yeah,
going
man.
through this kind of issue.
Yeah, I totally understand. Just on a side note, I feel like I'm pretty sure you are one of the
Yeah.
authors that I have in. Okay, so I'm reading a novel. Oops, accidentally hit
Yeah.
my thing. Um, I'm reading a novel. It's called Bill for Pain, and I like to reference many other authors because I'm one of those
Oh,
authors that have little hints of things to come in their book.
yeah.
And if your book particularly touched me, I'm pretty sure you were in there. So I think your book was actually one of them.
Oh,
hmm Um,
that's so
mhm.
great.
So just like if you read my book, which you might not, just be on the
I
lookout.
will, just send it to me.
like, I believe the characters were on the rooftop looking out at their college campus, and it was like a statue. And I believe instead of saying like a random name, it has Riggles on there. Um, Yeah, I believe that's the scene, but I also know that it was vandalized, and it's another author that's like vandalize the statue with their name on it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I do drop those hints in there. So I'm pretty sure you're the one.
Oh,
um,
I love that.
thank you. So next question: what does your writing process look like?
My writing process is really messy, I would
Mm,
say, because I don't have anything set or specific that I do. Most of the time I develop an idea, and then from that idea I flesh out my characters sometimes, or other times I just write the actual chapter, and from there I kind of see what I want to do and how I want to like extend the story. But then I also do have my moments where I fully flesh out the entire story and the characters before I even start. So I can't even say
mm,
specifically what I do. I'm just all over the place.
mhm. So you're more like a planster than a plotter. You like to just see where the story takes you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I can't say that I agree. I'm definitely more of a plotter. Okay, so I'm a mix
Yeah,
between the two, obviously, but
yeah.
I like to know the general beats and then kind of find my way to them. Um,
I do that with some of my stories because
mhm,
obviously you can't always just go off of
yeah.
whatever you're feeling. You've got to have an end to a means.
Yes, like, and I feel like what we don't well, I won't say we, but I feel like typically we don't you know realize that the writing process is fluid. Even though that it didn't work
Yeah,
for this book, it could work perfectly with this book. So I feel
so
like
true.
it's not just I'm a plotter. I plot every novel that I'm ever going to write. It's more of a fluent. It's like you
That's so
change.
true. Yeah, because my other book that I'm writing is definitely something that I've plotted. Like I know what's going to happen when, but with Apollo, I started with the last chapter already written. So I built on it based off of what was happening in the last chapter. So that's kind of how the story was built. So that one didn't have as much of planning as my other book did.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say is your writing strength and your writing weakness?
My writing strength. I think my strength would be that I can write with emotion. Like I can convey emotion.
Mhm,
That's something I think I do well. Um, and my weakness, I think, is that I can sometimes really get stuck in my own head about what I've written. And sometimes that holds me back in my writing. So I think that's my
mhm,
weakness.
mhm. Personally, I believe
Mm.
that you do have a really good way of conveying emotion because
Thank you.
I look my throughout this whole book, everything. Okay, so it was either me crying, being really optimistic, enthusiastic, or my whole existence quaking because it's just, yes, um, it's just I'm like I said, I'm a very emotional person,
Yeah.
so I really connect with writing. But with you in
Yeah.
particular, it's like I don't know, it just feels real. But
Thank you.
on the opposite end, I'm
Yeah.
let me I have a binder here that I
Okay.
like I go through each chapter and writing my opinion on them. And
Yeah.
um for your weakness, I would
Okay.
say let us see. Okay, I wrote this. I said that it was too short. And I feel like that's a good weakness. But I really like the book and I read this back like in August.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was too short in the sense that I feel like it was a lot more that could be like,
To unpack.
yes, to be unpacked than it was. And I really, really enjoyed, as I'm reading this, I really enjoyed the aspect of them having nicknames to cover up
Yeah.
like these, like it made them feel even more real.
Yeah.
Because I know
I
I would do
think
something like that.
I think with Apollo, the thing is that I wrote it in a blog format. So
Mhm,
the whole purpose of the story was that it's this boy writing online and he's only giving you a part of the picture
Mhm.
not the whole entire thing. Because I
Mhm.
actually do write quite long. Like with my other book, I'm sure chapters reach 3.7K per chapter. So
Mhm.
um, it was
Mhm.
for the purpose of the book. That's why it was so short.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of understand that, but as a reader, I was just like,
Yeah.
oh my lord. And I understand like it's for the narrative, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I was just like,
You kind of want more.
yeah, I was like, it's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
from the main character's perspective. So we're not really getting
Yeah.
that objective view like you would if you were just writing a
True.
third person novel. But I feel like that's one of the good things about a first person novel or a novel that is in a blog post form because you like it's it's just their point of view, so you get more emotions. But that's
Very
just
true.
one of the things you have to deal with as being an author. Um, so I want to know, how do you specifically develop your characters and plot?
Okay. So a lot of the time it comes from music or from ideas that pop up in my head or maybe something that's going on in my life at the time. If I'm struggling with something, then I try to put my pains, my struggles, because I'm very much a person who doesn't talk about what I'm going through all the time. So writing is my outlet, and most of the time it's my way of expressing myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I develop my stories. And then my characters are very much also always based on either myself or the people around me, because I believe that the best way to write is to write about what you know,
Mm-hmm.
because you can always reference those types of things and make them more real for your readers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, my characters are always based off of either people that I know or people or myself. Um, and yeah, that's just how I develop my characters. And then I start to flesh them out and build them out depending on kind of what the story is about. I kind of, you know, make them more realistic and I don't know, like, yeah, give them flaws because not everyone is perfect. Well, no one is perfect.
That
So
is true. Next question. Um, w- what comes first, your plot or your characters?
I think very much like my writing process, it is a mess. It depends. If I think about a character and I'm like, oh my God, this would be such a dope character, then I
Mm-hmm.
start to build from that character and I start to build a story from that. But sometimes I come up with ideas, specific ideas, and I'm like, oh my God, this story idea would be so perfect. And I start to work from there. So, but most of the time I can say that I always start with a well, not always, but most of the time I do start with the plot.
Really? I would
Yeah.
say I'm quite the opposite, as you could tell. Like, I start with a character and kind of work around
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And what I do is I start with like the main flaw of the character, that one flaw that is just going to persistently get in the way of their happiness. That's the flaw
Wow.
I start with. Yeah, and then I make the novel around that, I guess. So
Yeah,
like my current work in progress, but for pain, the main character's
yes.
flaw is that, let me think. I want to, let's see. I'm trying to see. Okay, let's use one of the main characters, not the main character.
Okay.
Um, and his flaw is that he views life through a mask. He never wants to take the chance on anything because he knows that he can mess up that chance. So he likes to
Yeah.
views it through a mask. And his main like character arc and everything is it's basically him realizing that him not taking that chance is still the same thing as him taking the chance. It's just he's giving up. And yeah, and I feel like I typically start with the character and then reverse outwards, even though I still like kind of have a general idea of the theme as I'm going. I'm not the theme,
Yeah.
the plot as I'm going along. Um, but I typically start with that flaw within that character.
It's always so interesting to me to hear how other authors go about their process,
I
because
agree.
obviously we're not always the same. So it's like, so you did it this way, well, I'm doing
Hmm.
it this way. Like it's really cool to hear.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I completely understand. Okay, now This is a very interesting question, in my opinion. But what is
Oh,
something that changed between the first draft and the last draft of Apollo, and why?
okay. So as I've mentioned before, it did start out as like one chapter written from a prompt.
Mm,
So initially it was really just that one chapter. But if we're talking about as a whole, the chapter that was not there when I ended the book was chapter 8, which is about the when they're supposed to go to the party and then
mhm,
um Starry Eyes slash Apollo comes in with this like
mhm,
skimpy get up from a TV show. And that chapter was initially not there because obviously it wasn't a part of the storyline, but then I read it back and I was like, damn, this is really really like angsty and
mhm,
sad. I just I need to add something to just kind of lighten it up a little bit so like they're
mhm,
not sad the entire time. And
mhm,
because also I'm the kind of person where like when I'm dealing with something that's upsetting, I tend to make jokes about it because I don't want to like talk about my feelings and stuff. So I think that very much at that point, that was very much me trying to like ease the situation.
mhm. Oh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that moment was when he came in with I'm pretty sure the booty shorts and the roller
Yes.
skates. Yes, that was one of my favorites. I
The
saved the
god
image.
dick.
I saved that image because that is the image that I use frequently in my group chat now because that image just speaks to me. In one Halloween party, I'm going to wear that. I just got to get the
Oh my
materials.
god, I love that for you. Love that.
Thank you. Because, oh, that is just icon.
I literally the moment I saw it while I was watching the TV show, I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing. I
Mhm.
love this."
So, what is the main theme, story, moral, whatever we want to call it, that you
Yeah.
wanted to get across with Apollo? And do you think you succeeded?
For me, Apollo was just basically about putting like what I wanted to do with Apollo was just put out this story that people could relate to. So
Mhm,
um the horrors of being in the closet, of fearing what would change in your life, things that I'm
mhm,
personally struggling with, like what's it gonna be like if you come out? Is it easier to just stay in yourself?
mhm,
Um, because as you know, Apollo slash Starry Eyes was out, but Golden Boy slash Nate wasn't.
mhm,
And for me, that's how it is. Like, I'm surrounded by these people who are out and proud, but I come from a very conservative family. So it's very difficult to be that person that I kind of want to, that I feel like I'm on the inside. So that was very much what I was writing about. And I just wanted people to relate to that. Um,
mhm,
even his character being biracial, um, the the whole issue of people kind of you not feeling like you're fitting in with any crowd. That's kind of how I've always felt my whole life. So
mhm,
I was just trying to put out something that people could relate to, people could see themselves in. And when, for me, Apollo became successful when people would comment on my story, oh, same, oh, I went through this as well,
mhm,
except like this. That's when I thought it was successful because I thought, okay, I have reached the people that I was trying to reach.
mhm.
So yeah, that's how I define the success of Apollo.
Mm. And I really relate to those themes, even though
Yeah.
even though like it's a big thing in the queer
Yeah,
community, like because
so
I
true.
want to say I come from okay, one side of my family is very conservative.
Mm.
I can't speak conservative, and another side of my family is very liberal.
Yeah,
So it was typically easier for me to be with that side of the family than to come over here to my
yeah,
conservative family.
mhm,
And I really related to that because I also come from a big. It was not a big school in the sense of many students. It's a small
yeah,
school, but it's like a kind of a classy school. And though
it's
they
fair, yeah.
and since it was like not that many people going to the school because it had high academic standards, it was
Yes,
I knew these people and like I knew these people ever since I was in kindergarten, and they would make these type of jokes that were homophobic, and it just made me feel like I couldn't, be a part of what they have going because I'm
Mm.
gonna be the person that the jokes are about then. Um,
Yeah, I get that. Um, the way I grew up was also very kind of posh-ish kind of school,
mhm.
and for me, it wasn't homophobic jokes, it was racist jokes.
Really?
Um, yeah, and then as I grew up, because obviously, I come from a black family and I went to this really white posh school where I was very much the minority, very much like
Mhm,
there weren't that many black kids in my grade. At one point, I was the only black kid in my class.
mhm,
So I would whitewash myself, I guess you could say, to try and fit in more. I think that's something a lot of black kids go through.
I believe so
Um,
too.
yeah, and with my black family, they'd be like, "Oh, you're so whitewashed," and I could never find an in between. I could never
Uh,
please anyone. It
mhm,
was so yeah.
mhm.
I totally get where you're coming from.
I don't believe African Americans can be racist because I believe in order to be racist, you have to have power, but
Yeah, very true.
we don't. But I feel like you can be prejudiced.
That was the biggest thing, like with Apollo, trying to show that you have to be happy with yourself. Otherwise, you will never be happy. You can't always please everyone.
Mhm,
Even if people are going to deny you because of certain things, you just have to learn to get by on your own sometimes.
mhm. And I feel like another thing that our society does, which is so dumb to
Yeah.
me, is the whole racist things. Like we have races. That is
Yeah.
confusing. Like that really confuses me because um how are we different? Like a, a human we're the human race, but we have like African
Yeah.
Americans, Europeans, Caucasian, Mexicans, and I know that it comes from more of a cultural standpoint than anything, but at the
Mm.
end of the day, we're just one race. It's not really
Yeah.
we
The human race.
yeah, it's just one human race. We did that. It's no science between
The
our
segregation came from
yes.
us. Yeah.
Like I don't feel like I'm that different between a European, another African American, a Hispanic.
Mm.
I don't feel that, but I see that a lot of other people use that to discriminate against people, and that always
Yeah.
confused me ever since I was young. And then another thing is religion. Like I feel like religion can be such a good and helpful, powerful thing because it gives you something
True.
to be a part of. You can feel like you're in a community. But then
Yeah.
you see people take religion and just use it to push their beliefs onto other people. Like,
Yes. So true.
mhm, like,
So true. When I was still in high school, like 20, yeah, whenever, when I was still in high school, I used to, because I'm Christian,
mhm,
I used to get like the boys in the bus would just be like, "Yeah, don't you hate gay people because you're, Christian?" And I
mhm,
was like, "That's not how it works. You
yeah,
need to stop using, Christianity or any other religion as a weapon
mhm,
against other people. Like that's not how it is. That's
yeah,
not the purpose of it."
yeah. Like, I totally agree. So let's, what's your typical writing day? What is that like?
My typical okay, first of all, I write at night.
Mhm,
Let me get that out there. I think I'm very much a night owl, so I will
mhm,
stay up and I will try to write. So I always have a plan for the chapter, like a
mhm,
little summary of what I want to happen. So I will start to flesh that little prompt idea for the chapter out until I get it perfect. But I do tend to rewrite a lot. So I could just write the same thing over and over again in different ways.
mhm.
So, yeah, that's typically what my writing day looks like, writing the same thing over and over till I get it right.
My writing time. Okay, so on the
Mm,
weekdays, I do it at night because that's just the best
yeah.
time for me. And on the weekends, I do it in the morning and at night because I have more
Oh,
time on my hands.
yeah.
And for me, it's more of a for me, I just do everything. So I'm more of a I can't multitask. I like to focus on one thing at a time, and I know I can't
Yeah.
multitask. So for me, it's just getting the words on the paper for the first draft. So I'm just writing it,
Yeah.
even though I know like that dialogue is stiff. I just write it, and then like for the second draft, I'm like more of a this sounds terrible. Let me rewrite this, and
Yeah.
then yeah, that's what I do. So
Yeah,
rewriting.
because in my drafts, there is always more than one version of every single chapter. Every
Really?
single one. Every single chapter, there's
I don't
always
think
more
I've
than one
ever done that.
version.
Oh.
Because for me, it is so difficult because sometimes I'm like, okay, I have this fear of like, what if I delete everything I've written and I start again and I realize this is worse than the first one?
Oh, I had
So
that
I'm just there
fear.
like, I keep all my drafts as well. Like every story I've ever written, whether I've published it on Wattpad then unpublished it, it's still in my drafts. I've got it.
Mhm. I like to do that too for memory's sakes. And then I know when I get to
Yeah.
it, I know because like I like to look back on things that I wrote,
Which
and
you
I like to see how
yeah.
I improved, and I also like to see.
Same.
I just like to feel what I felt when I'm writing this because I don't remember very well. Like I don't
Mm,
remember the specific things that I've done, but I always remember how something made me feel.
mm.
So just looking at that piece of paper, that's why I have journals. Like I can actually like feel those emotions, even though I might not
Yeah, that
still
you
feel
wrote
them.
at the time.
But I understand like like yeah, like I just feel that. Okay.
For me, like
Mhm,
with these drafts, sometimes I'm very hard on myself about my writing. So looking back on how I used to write versus how I do right now
mhm,
always kind of motivates me and helps me a little to understand that I'm actually improving. Just to see that like I've gone from one point to another,
mhm.
that actually motivates me more and gets me out of my funks sometimes. So yeah, it's always great to keep those.
Mhm. I don't know if I'm the only one, but when I go
Yeah.
to actually publish something, like either to Webpad or whatever, however way I
Mhm.
want that to be published, the second to last draft, I actually print it out and put it in like a folder or something like that,
Really?
and keep it. I really
Oh,
like
I
to do
should
that.
do
I
that.
really love to do it because it's like it's just I just love to look at it.
Yeah.
Like I did that. So,
Me.
why does being an author, writer, matter to you?
I love to tell stories. Just like you said earlier about people didn't really know you were a writer, but you were there, like just writing. That was me my whole life. Um, I was always writing, whether people knew I loved it or not. Um, and because I just love to tell stories, I love to make people feel things. And
Mhm,
so with writing, it matters to me because I can affect someone's life. I can
mhm,
put something out there that makes people feel things. And that's my main goal as a writer, to make people feel things. And I love that feeling of like writing something and putting it out there for people to see and read and enjoy. So yeah.
I one thing that really I'm waiting on it to happen, but it hasn't happened yet because I haven't posted my books yet. I'm still working them out. But one thing, if that ever happens to me, I really would just sit there and cry. Is if someone actually messaged me and just tell me like this book like just helped me get to a difficult thing, like
Yes.
that will really make me feel very special because
Yeah.
it's just very nice to know that I wrote this because I was feeling vulnerable and for
Yeah.
this material to help somebody else, I just really like
Yes.
that. And it makes me like
That was actually with the polo, that actually has happened quite a lot. Like people have
Mhm,
DM'd me and like, your book is amazing. I love it. Um, it did this for me and that for me, and I'm like, oh, like there's a weight on my heart that just lifts when I hear
Mhm,
that because I'm like, I'm doing what I set out to do.
mhm. What I
I
think
am
I'm gonna
affecting someone's
I
life.
think if that happens to me, I'm just gonna be like,
Yeah.
I might be going through a personal time, a rough time with myself, and then just
Yeah.
drinking my tea or my coffee, whichever one I choose, and then just reading that. That'll just make my whole day flow way better than it was.
Yeah.
Um, that
Those
motive.
are the things that motivate me to move forward in my writing because like every other writer, there are times where you feel like you can't go on, and seeing those kind of comments are what really pushes you forward.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, um, is writing your full-time career? And I also hear that you're a ghostwriter. Don't quote me, but I believe you are because I like to keep up with all your posts. And what is that like?
Okay, so I am a third year university student, so
Mhm,
it is not my full time job. I do have school that I'm doing, but I do love to do it on the side. It is something that I really enjoy. And
mhm,
also, my degree that I'm doing is very in sync with it. So, that always allows me to kind of do some form of writing. And with ghostwriting, I actually started it recently at towards the end of last year. And it's been an experience because you're not really writing what you want to write. You're writing what someone else wants you to write. You're really expanding on what you know. You're gaining new experiences in terms of writing. You're learning things about yourself as a writer too, what you're capable of and what you're willing to put up with.
mhm.
You're also kind of learning to work with other people and kind of collaborate. And it's been a good experience for me so far.
That's good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I will try it one day.
Yeah, it's also a great way to make money.
So, what is your favorite underappreciated book here on Wattpad?
Okay, so with most of the books that I read on Wattpad, most of the time, okay, they start out underappreciated, but they do always get their moment to shine.
Mhm,
So the book that I'm saying, it's growing quite rapidly, but I still view it as something that's quite underrated. Um, Brighter Places. It's called Brighter Places by I think Haley. I think that's the username for the person. So that's the
mhm,
book that I would say is underrated. Though I don't, yeah. I think it'll definitely grow. It's growing quite like
mhm.
rapidly at the moment. So yeah.
I'm probably gonna check that out. That's why I asked that question because I just, you know, I need another book to interview, so I like to hear what.
Oh, don't.
um. So how do you think that your two main characters would go through solving their problems?
Okay. So the characters are quite emotional, but they're also not very good with dealing with that emotion.
Mhm,
So most of the time, I think both of them, they would very much keep it inside. And by the time they do get to solve the issue, it's kind of like they've blown it out of proportion. I think those are the kind of like it becomes a much bigger issue than it could have been. Um, but yeah, that's I think
mhm.
how they go about solving the issues, just keeping it inside until it builds up to the point where it comes out in a over dramatic way.
I ooh, I don't know. I know I'm a very emotional person, and I know I get
Yeah.
emotional very quickly, but I can't
Mm,
really say that I'm good at dealing with it or that I'm not good at dealing with it because it
yeah.
honestly depends on my mood.
On the
Because,
situation.
because,
On your mood.
because okay, so because I I like to think that I'm a straight person, straight person. Let me stop. It's the lies for me. A straightforward person. Um, and so I, I like to just tell you how my feelings are
Yeah.
uh because if you know how I feel like we can change things to make me feel better
Mm,
and to make you feel better. But sometimes I can't honestly tell if I'm telling them my emotions or just telling them
mm,
what I want them to hear, like what they want to hear. So
yeah.
I know I do that.
Okay. Personally, I'm very passive aggressive. I struggle with confrontation. I struggle with telling it how it is, with giving it to people straight. So for me, I'm also the person where I'm very bad at dealing with it because I'm also quite emotional. So I'm not the greatest.
Don't worry, none of us
And I
are.
think and I think also with Golden Boy, something he does struggle with is he gets quite aggressive sometimes
Mhm,
when he can't solve something, he acts out. He doesn't say what the issue is, he just kind of acts out on that feeling.
mhm.
Yeah. Which is kind of how my best friend is.
Um,
Their inspiration.
my best friend is more of the I'm just gonna let this affect me until I can't take
Yeah,
anymore, and then I'm gonna tell you
that's
how I
me.
feel. That
Yeah.
that's my best friend. And then my other best friend is more of a I'm saying one thing, but I mean this other thing. That's my other best friend. And then my last best
Oh,
friend,
wow.
she is just I feel this way. Fix it. That's
Okay. I feel like, yeah, definitely. I'm definitely the first one.
me. So, what are some unfinished projects that you don't have finished right now, and do you ever plan on finishing them?
So the one unfinished product poo. The one unfinished project that I think all my readers are aware of is The Way You Feel. I'm still working on that story, and for any of them wondering, I am going to finish it. I am gonna like get back to it. I promise. I promise. And I've also got a few stories in my drafts, but
Mhm,
I don't want to publish them until I'm completely done with them so that the same thing doesn't happen to them where like everyone's like wondering where I am and like why I'm not writing.
mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I do have
I
a
do
few
that too.
projects. Yeah, so I do have a few projects and stories that I'm waiting to just finish before I release them.
Mhm. I do that too because I like to have a lot of chapters pre-ready
Yeah,
to update like weekly or daily or whatever I want to update, rather than
yeah,
finish a chapter and then post it. Because I do that for
that's
two
how I am
reasons.
as well.
Because one is because I I change as an author, so things
Mm,
things in the story can change, and it typically
yes,
won't like the whole story just won't change, but like the previous chapter, even the one before that, might change based on what I have in the next chapter. So I like to stay like
definitely.
a couple of chapters ahead. And then two
Mm,
is I feel like it's better to stay like briefly consistent and then to like just go on a break rather than upload 1 month, upload 3 months later, then upload a
yeah.
year later. I rather just like get you this whole thing in a couple of months by doing a week by week because I've already wrote the chapters for you.
That's how I am with all of my stories as well. Like, I always write at least 10 chapters or so in advance. And
Mhm,
like you said, things tend to change. So the next chapter also changes, then you have to rewrite that. So I
mhm,
do like to be prepared, but like exactly with Apollo, actually, that's how I did it. The whole story was
mhm,
done before I even posted it. Besides chapter 8, which I added in
mhm,
randomly in between. Um, but things change. You just want to be prepared. I'm kind of, yeah, that's how I am with all my stories. I never, never, never publish unless I've got like a set of chapters ready to go.
mhm. On to the next question. So I want to know what is one of the characters in your novel who has the which of the one of the characters in your novel has the most special place in your heart and why?
Okay, so favorite question so far. I would say Apollo has my Apollo Starry Eyes has the most special place in my heart because I relate so much to him. So much of his personality is definitely similar to mine. He is the kind of friend that is always there for you, always the shoulder to lean on,
Mhm,
or to cry on. And I think I'm very much that same person. But one thing he does struggle with is expressing his own emotion, which
mhm.
I too struggle with. And I think I put a lot of myself into him, which is why he definitely holds the most special place in my heart because I feel like I'm reading about myself when I, you know, read about him.
Um, I can't decide because I love them both. So yes, that's my final answer. Indecisive.
I love that.
So, um,
I think
go
I
ahead.
think with most I think with most readers though, they would probably say Golden Boy because I think when you're reading something, sometimes you get so attached to the main character more than
Mhm.
other characters because you understand them the best.
Yeah,
And I think the way from the comments that I've received, I would say he's probably the favorite.
but for me, I'm a very I like to be objective most of the time.
Yeah.
Um, So it, it honestly like I love the main character, but I also love villains, especially complicated villains, and I also love like people around the main character. So for me, it's not
Yes.
usually like the main character that I just absolutely love. It's usually like the villain or the love interest because to me,
Yes.
like everything about the main character, and I feel
That's true.
like that makes me love them, but at the same
Mhm.
time, it makes them less interesting than a villain.
That's true. Because with the villain, you never know what's going through their head. You never know the real reason behind their actions sometimes. So
Hmm.
I get that.
So I know that the story has ended, but I wanted to know what do I don't think it will be, but will there be a sequel? And if not, what do you envision the character's future will be like?
Okay, so I feel like the way it ended was really great. And sometimes people build on something really great when it's not necessary. And I think for Apollo, that would definitely be the situation
I
where a
totally
sequel
agree.
a sequel is not needed. Like the way it ended was so perfect that I think and so open-ended. I do love open endings. Okay, I love happy endings, but I love open endings too, where it's kind of like nothing is certain because I think that's the way life definitely is. You know, nothing is certain. So I don't want to give any certainties to my characters as well. I kind of want everyone to envision their own future for them.
Mhm. So
So,
I have to say that I'm quite the hypocrite because I I love books with bittersweet endings because it
oh,
just like yes, they got to their happy ending. They got to their happily ever after, but they have
yeah.
lost things to get here. They had struggles to get here. And that
Yeah.
really resonates with me because it just makes it feel like life. Because yeah, you
That's
may
yeah.
get yeah, you may get to the place you got, but it's
Yeah.
not going to be perfect. Like you're not going to get to this place without giving up something you want. Um
That is so true.
but uh and then I also talk with my friends
Mm,
about how I see often with books that I'm want to interview on Wattpad is that they
mm.
have a stellar first book and I'm just in love with it. And then they continue the book and it gets terrible. And I feel like
Yeah,
and I feel like this problem occurs in the writing community a lot because we write because we necessarily feel like we have to and that we want to expose that vulnerable part of ourselves. So
definitely.
it's kind of
Mm.
hard to give that up, especially if something is successful. So like
Yes,
like and then also it's safe. Like people who are going to like it. People like the
enjoy
first
it.
one. So people obviously going to want to read the second one. But I feel
Mm,
like it's just got to come to a point where you can let them go.
yes.
Because if you know when to stop, it's going to make your readers just want it even
You know,
more. But
exactly. I've actually thought about writing bonus chapters, but I was like, no, you're gonna ruin it. So I've had to stop myself a lot of times and be like, you know what, the story's over. Like, let's leave it where it is. It's perfect where it is. Um, you know, yeah. So for me, if I ever were to write a sort of sequel in quotation marks for any story that I write, it would be more of a spin-off. It would be about a
yeah,
different character,
or a side
exploring a
character.
different
Ooh.
exactly, a side character. That's what I would do. I just don't think sequels are made for every single type of book, and I
Book.
think Apollo is definitely not a book that needs a sequel.
And what I meant that I was quite the hypocrite is because
Yeah.
I when I'm writing, I just hate I absolute hate to give my characters issue. But I know that like, that's what the book is about, their issues. And
Yeah.
and I absolutely hate it. So I tend to try to give them a happy ending, even though I love bittersweet ending. But as a writer, I realized that I just need to kill him. I swear, I swear that is that is something I struggle with because it's either rainbows,
Yeah.
happy ending, or death, no ending for you. But I'm getting way better at it now, like as in giving them a happy ending, but it's also
Yeah.
bittersweet. But an
Yeah.
early writer
Yeah.
me, it was either you got everything you ever wanted or death.
I think as an early writer, the problem I had was making either like it was way too sad. Like it was just things were falling apart and
Mhm,
then things would just suddenly be okay. And it was I had to learn to like pace myself with my stories, like
mhm.
and kind of like give them reason as well. Like
Yeah, because if it's too sad, who wants to read a book that's just all sad? But besides
right?
that, but besides that, if it's really like sad, sad, like be
Yeah.
honest. If a real person was
Yeah,
going through
that's
all of
true.
that sadness, they would
How would
have
it
given up a long time ago. They would have chose a new partner if it was a romance. They would have not
yeah,
saved the kingdom if it was a fantasy. Like if it has to come with understanding. Like if you take away
exactly.
something that makes that character them, you have to give them something else that's either going to they're going to build their personality like as in
Yeah.
okay, this part of me is gone, but I always can remember it, or this part of me is gone, but it was a negative part, like something like that. You can't just keep
Yes.
taking away from your character because if you keep continuously taking away from a human, they're just going to give up on that thing that they're going after.
Yeah, because there are consequences also to every action that you put out. So it's gotta also read with your characters, you know. You can't just have them go through everything and like there's no consequences. Obviously, the consequences of something really upsetting and sad happening is that the person's gonna want to give up, the person's gonna be, you know, sad. And
Mhm.
if you keep adding on to that, where are you gonna go? How are you gonna,
Yeah, what's
you know,
what is their why is they continuing?
yeah.
Like
Like,
I
where's
feel
there
like
to go?
like I feel like it's high risk, high reward. Um
Mhm.
That's how I look at it when I'm writing conflict, high risk, high reward.
Yes.
Because if they're in their comfort zone, obviously they're not going to go nowhere because they have a
Yeah.
problem. And if they just stay with what they're used to and familiar to, it's not
Mm.
going to help them. But like
That's
the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. I think of it this way because if they do something like fantastic, like so say for Nate and Story Eyes, like
yes.
it's not in their comfort zone to tell each other about their feelings for each other. Like
Yeah.
it's that's not if it was in their comfort zone, they wouldn't have a problem with it. But
True.
since they had this big risk of telling each other, it came with a big reward. but at the also it's a big risk, so it can come with a big consequence. So I like to
That
keep
is
that
so
in
true.
mind. So like if they're doing something that's way out of their comfort zone, it's and they achieve it, it's going to be a big payoff to the reader. But at the same time, if
Yeah,
it's too far out of their comfort zone, they're not going to achieve it because they have no idea what they're doing.
exactly, exactly. And I think a lot of people didn't understand, I think, why I wouldn't like make Nate tell Starry Eyes how he was feeling. And it was like, well, if this was real life, he's an anxious teenage boy who has feelings for his best friend. There
Hmm.
are so many consequences to having feelings for your best friend. You could
Yeah.
end up losing this person who has the most special place in your heart. Like,
Hmm.
that's a big risk. And you
Yeah.
have to understand that when you read, like, you have to understand that the way
Hmm.
that it's written is meant to be realistic. It is meant to portray kind of what might happen in real life. So
We
you
are.
can't, it
Hmm.
can't always end happy, or the characters can't always do what you want them to do.
Hmm.
Because
I completely agree because we have to understand um we have to understand that like these we don't need to view them as characters. We need to view them
yeah,
as real people. And if we just
yes,
continuously see this person is not good with their emotions, what makes you think they would just what makes you think they would just run around telling someone about their emotions?
exactly. Oh my gosh.
So how do you balance your personal life with your writing life?
Um, I do not quite, if I'm quite honest. That is something I struggle with.
Mhm.
I think the main problem with me is that as much as I love writing,
Mhm.
writing doesn't the writing that I do on Wattpad doesn't really do anything for me to solve my personal issues, like to actually solve them, not in terms of letting out my emotions. And it doesn't do anything for me financially or anything. So I have to prioritize the things in my life that need to get done first. So I do struggle to balance that out, and all my readers
Mhm.
can attest. And but you know what? I will let you know when I figure it out.
Mhm.
Because right now it's just not cute.
Um, I agree because it's just like I write because I feel like I have to, so
Ah,
it doesn't
yes.
quite match with my personal life. Like it
Yeah.
sometimes I feel terrible, but sometimes I just have to drop my writing to actually go
Yes.
write this paper because it's due,
Exactly.
and and I feel like it's a big struggle. But hopefully one day we can get to the
We
point
figure
where yeah, we can get to the point
it out.
where we're satisfied enough with how much we can write in this day.
Oh,
And
definitely.
I can't wait to get to that point because I know I want to write more right now, but I can't because I
Yeah,
have other responsibilities. But I can't wait to get to the point
exactly.
where I'm just where I need to be.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. Like sometimes I feel like the readers don't always see that side, that like it's really difficult to balance writing an entire story on top of your personal life. Like and it's not like things in your life are just bland and static and there's nothing going on and writing is the only thing that you do. Like there are other things that
Yeah.
are going on, there are other problems that you need to get through, that you need to solve, that you know so yeah.
Yeah, like authors are people just like YouTubers or any other those. Like I feel like with content
Exactly.
creators, whether it be an artist, author,
Mm.
YouTuber, it's kind of hard to see like what's going on behind the scene because you
Yes.
invested yourself to whatever they're doing. So like whether that be their book, their art, their videos, you invested it. So
Yeah.
you feel like it's kind of a letdown because oh they said that they would post this week but they had to stop, but little do
Yeah.
you know they couldn't post because they did this and now they're in the hospital for a little while.
Yeah.
like it's we need to consider like the author's point of view too.
Very true.
Mhm. Well,
I think that was so well put. Like, we've all got issues, we've all got problems, the same as the readers.
yeah.
So sometimes I just feel like they need to put themselves in the author's shoes to understand why some things just can't be done when you say they need when you say they're gonna be done. Like,
Hmm.
it's life.
But yes, readers, but at the same time, that is something totally different from an author not fulfilling their promises continuously. It's something totally
Yeah,
different when an author is trying and you can see it because they're apologetic, they're trying, they're
yeah.
giving you updates. But that's
Yes.
something totally different from an author just not trying to fulfill their promises with you because I s-
Yes.
I read this book and not book, it's a manga. Well, it's a webtoon to be specific. It's a webtoon and um
Yeah.
it's it's called Tower of God and the creator is SIU and he
Yes.
writes, he draws and he writes the webtoon and
Yes.
he's
That's
having
a lot of work.
mhm, he's having rich issues so he can't write for the next half a year. And
Oh,
I
wow.
saw people in the comment section like, but you promised and this and that. But he's literally
Yeah.
saying that his doctor said if he continues writing, he may not be able to use his hand again. Like,
That's yeah.
and I
And
feel
that's a
like,
real life issue, like
yeah, and he's continuously still trying and trying. Like, it's just like, it that baffles me because he has issues he has to solve. Like some people talk about
Yeah,
they're dropping the comic now and all that stuff, but it's just like I'm a human. I have issues.
exactly. And
Like,
as an artist, like, as someone who also, like, draws, I can't imagine ever doing a webtoon on my
mm,
own, like, writing the story and drawing it and
mm,
this and this and this. It's so much work. That's why you'll notice, like, they don't put out chapters as quickly as, for instance, writers would, because there
mm,
is so much that goes into that. It's not just a storyline, you have to visualize it as well.
then it has to be good
So
art or they're gonna drop the comic. Like
it has to
it's a
be a
lot.
lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And then another, this is just random, but
Yeah.
another thing that just clicked into my head is I feel like I'm a very artistic person. I love art and I love
Same.
musicals. So, and I feel like it's a negative stigma towards people, musical actors too, because
Yes.
like it seems like a lesser type of acting. But I feel like
Yes.
it's kind of either equal to or even harder to do because you can't mess up in a musical. If you mess up,
Yeah,
it's not no replay, it's not no editing that out. In a musical, you just have
exactly.
to be on it. And it's just like,
I
ugh. Go ahead.
I was a theater kid as well, so I completely understand that. I remember, like, with my role, just being so afraid to mess up because it was a big role too. Like,
Mhm,
people, it's not like you're like, okay, no offense to side characters, but it's not like you're a side character that
mhm,
you're just on the side doing a thing, trying to make everything lively and stuff. You've got speaking lines and
mhm,
you know, it's so much, and not only that, you have to be bold. In
mhm,
theater, you have to be bold, you have to be loud because the whole entire theater has to hear what you're saying. They
mhm.
have to
And
understand your emotions.
then you have to
There are
be
no jump cuts.
emotional.
There are no
Like, then you have to be
there's
at
no
this
panic
place and
in
this place. Like, it's so hard.
exactly, because there's no editing. There is no
Mhm,
editing. There is no angles that can make you look bigger or more emotional. Like, there
There's
aren't
no
those
auto
things.
tune.
There is no exactly. There's so much that you have to do as a theater actor that is so much more difficult, and I personally think it's a lot more difficult than, um, acting for TV.
Mhm,
Just from my own experience, it's so much more difficult, and like you said, they are so underappreciated,
mhm.
and I
But
think it's because people don't understand what goes into it.
like you don't. It's like since it's not seen and since you haven't
Yeah,
experienced it, you don't actually take the time to register it. Like your
yeah,
phone, do you know how many scientists it took to make that device that it's so powerful, but do you ever really take the time to appreciate the scientists that helped make
yeah.
that phone? Like, but We're humans.
It's a lot of work.
How did you market Apollo?
So I think for me, the most marketing I really did was my like make had a good summary, making sure I had a good cover.
Mhm,
And those are my main ways of marketing it because I don't really have like any accounts on social media or stuff that I use. So that's my way of marketing it, making sure that
mhm,
my cover is the most aesthetically pleasing, making sure that my
mhm,
summary is something that people can understand and kind of grasp and the idea of the story without giving up too much.
mhm. So I want to
Yeah.
know
So that's
how.
kind of
I want to know how do you select your characters' names?
okay. So one of two ways.
Mhm,
So obviously the surname will always relate to kind of the ethnic background or the
mhm.
nationality, that type of thing. But with the names, I either use the names that I want to name my own kids. Or if it's something like Apollo,
Mhm.
where he's got a quirky character, so I decided to give him a quirky name. And with Nate, I don't want to call him a basic bitch, but he was basic. So I gave him a kind of like more basic name. Not that Nate is basic, but
Yeah, I understand. Um,
yeah,
actually, I probably should consider the roots of like where that name came from because I don't
yeah.
actually do that. Instead, like I just choose names that have meanings to them. Like
Ah, okay, yes. I have done this before as well. Like, yeah. So I
mhm.
get that.
So
Mm,
like let's see. In my so it like it they have names. So I'm just gonna use the one I used last time because that's the one I can
yeah.
remember. Is I have a book called Losing Myself, and that boy
Mm,
goes through a lot, and his name is Solom, which means lonely. Um,
yes.
and then I like it. It doesn't have to, and it's a different language. For lonely, it
Mm,
doesn't necessarily have to be a different language and translates to English.
yeah.
It could be like that's what this means, or this is the root of it. Like it just means
Yes.
it's like that name is a part of their identity, and it connects to one of their like either character traits or flaws. And then
Yes.
sometimes I don't give a character a meaning to the name, but that in itself is the meaning.
Yeah. Nice. I think there's a book that the project that I was telling you about earlier that I'm
Mhm,
trying to finish in private first. Um, the one of the main characters' names is Lucky,
mhm,
and it's ironic because he's not a very lucky person in
mhm,
lots of bad things happen around him. So
mhm,
also that kind of thing where it's like something that works against what's actually what the character's facing.
mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that too. Mhm. And I just on a side note, I love when authors
Yeah.
draw back to their first like something that happened in their first chapter. Like when
Yes.
or like the one that I personally like and I'm probably biased because I wrote it, but it's this moment in the beginning book where my main
Yeah.
character sees his rooftop because he goes up into the rooftop to like de-stress himself.
Yes.
In the beginning of the book, he sees it as a place of comfort, and this is shown because of the like the sunset, the warmth he feels. He sees this black crow like he loves, and he just finds it as a comfortable place. But by the end of the
Yeah.
novel, it's snowing, it's cold, the sun's not coming up. Um,
Mm.
it's snow
The
piling
complete
outside.
opposite.
Yes, the
Yeah.
completely opposite, and that really can show like where the character started and now where they're at.
Where they are. Oh, I love that. I actually really love that as well in novels that I read and stuff. I do love to see that as well. So yeah.
So,
The contrast, the and also I love when you can use the environment to kind of like you were saying, where it's sunny and it's warm, and then it's cold and it's snowing. I love when you can
Mhm,
use things around you to kind of like give emotion to the situation.
mhm. I love the
That's love.
environment. The environment, that's typically where how I, because most of my characters don't like to actually talk about their emotions, so
Yeah.
I have to display this in not conflict, but dialogue and the environment. Because if a character sees the environment that way, that can give you an
Yeah.
insight on how they feel.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely. Just a side note about
mhm,
you were saying your characters don't really like to talk about their feelings. And I think also with my own characters it's the same way. And I just find it so funny because when I was still a reader, like before I did writing the way I'm doing it now,
mhm.
I could never understand why they just didn't say what they meant.
Like I was.
But now I'm like,
Mhm.
actually, I get it.
Yeah, like I'm so frustrated. You know, this whole plot point could have been solved if you would have just been like,
If you
"You
would have
made me
just said
upset."
something.
Yeah, but then you realize, like, that's not real life. When have I ever done
Exactly.
that?
Exactly. And I used to think about like my own situations, and I'm like, you could have said something here, but you didn't.
Mhm.
So what you shouting at this character for?
It's the you're being a hypocrite. But
Exactly.
if you didn't write, what would you do with that spare time?
Okay, so besides writing, I do makeup. So I
Okay.
do that on the side. So I think I would do writing and makeup, and also, yeah, I think that's where I would spend a lot of my time.
Mhm. For me, if I didn't do writing, honestly, um, I probably would paint my nails. I really want to do it, but I don't have time. Or I would draw a comic. But
Yes,
painting
drawing.
my nails would be something I would very be interested in. And um, I don't know why. I just really want to do that because I like to take care of them.
You should do it.
I like to like file them and have them
Yeah,
a good length that I like, and I
yeah,
like to do this thing because my nails, I don't know why, they just absorb moisture very well, and they become clear, and I just like that,
yes.
and I just want to do that, but I don't have time. Cry, cry.
I think, yeah. And I think I would also do art, like in general, because I did do art in school, like as one of my main subjects.
Mhm,
So, but in the last 2 years, I've kind of not been doing as much. So I think I would be really into that if I wasn't doing writing.
mhm. So tell us, well, I you just changed the cover, which I kind of like it a little bit better, but I also like the old one because the old one is the one that I read the book with, so
Yeah,
it kind of
there's
have
like
an
sentimental value there.
sentimental. But I do like the new one, and I do think it's an
Thank
improvement. But that one, that old one, when I see that, I think Apollo. But could you tell us about your process of actually making and coming up with the cover? I.
Okay, so with my covers, I always try to relate them to the story. So that's the first thing I always try to do. And then the second thing I do is that I try to have an idea of what I want to see on the cover.
Mhm,
Then I go on like Pinterest and I scroll through thousands of pictures until I kind of find something that I feel I can start to work with. And then I just build on there from that. Like if you look at the recent cover with the kind of like cartoon boy going like walk or person really
mhm,
walking, and then what I've done is that I've in the actual text on the font and the things surrounding the font, that's kind of where I've added a bit of the characters themselves, like the story. I've kind of put a little bit of that into
mhm.
there. And yeah, I just love to make covers.
I wish I could do that because that's not one of my strong points, making the cover.
Hit me up. I will make a cover for you to
Oh,
the best of my ability.
I would definitely consider it too. Um, okay, so next question. How
Yeah.
long does it take you to write books typically?
Oh, forever. Forever. Apollo, like I mentioned earlier, did start out as one chapter, so that
Mhm,
didn't take that long. That one I think took me maybe a week or two to really write it and flesh it out that way.
mhm,
But when I started to write it as like a mini novelette, short story type thing, that took me about 6 months, mainly because I kept writing and then rewriting. Like I said, that's part of my process. So
mhm,
it does take me quite a long time to write because I like to make sure, first of all, that everything connects. That, I don't like to see too many plot holes if I can truly avoid them.
mhm.
So I'm always just trying to make it make sense. I'm always trying to improve on what I've already got. So my writing process does take a very long time.
Um, Same. It takes me 6 months to one
Yeah,
year to write an entire novel.
yeah.
But I believe
I
a
think, yeah.
big part of that is school. School, job, taking
Yeah,
care. Like it just
so true.
yeah, like I don't have like this is not a career for me, at least not right now.
Exactly.
So it
Yeah,
takes me a bit longer. But I also hear
yeah.
people can write a whole entire 80,000 novel in weeks and months, and I just don't understand how that's possible.
Neither do I. I have read books where the author has literally started it and like ended it so quickly, and I'm like, how did you do this? How many
Mhm.
chapters are you like releasing a day to
And
even get
then
here? Like,
what
I
really
don't get
gets
it.
me is that it be so like it doesn't be bad. It be a good book. Like you telling me
Exactly.
you wrote this whole book in a week, this whole 80,000 word book in a week, and it's this good. Where?
I swear, like, it feels like they don't have anything else in their lives going on. But I can bet you they have things going on.
Like they're going to parties, they're staying up late, they're waking
I
up and
am
just
telling
like I just be like I wish I was gifted like that.
Oh my god, me too,
Because
honestly.
if
I
I
feel
could
like
write
my
a whole
readers would love
book in a week, best believe I got y'all. We gonna have a book every we gonna have
it.
3 books every month.
Oh my gosh.
So
I
what's
feel you.
so what's you like? What is the unique thing that only your writing style has?
Um,
Yeah, I like this question.
only you know what? Okay, so what I think is unique, though I don't know if it's only my writing, I highly doubt it, but, I think I'm very much an emotional writer, and
Mhm,
also I write, or according to my sister who's read my book,
mhm,
um, I write very poetically. Because I do have a bit of like, all through high school, all I did was write poetry about how I was feeling and stuff. So I think I took a lot of that into my writing. Um, so I would say, yeah, emotional and poetic.
mhm. I feel like your writing style, I try to give each author their own little unique bit that I believe. Um,
Oh,
I feel like that the
thank
unique
you.
thing in your writing style is, let me think. Uh, I believe so. Like what I'm trying to say is like you know how the character you use like environments, clothing, names, things like
Yes.
that to give you a deeper level of the characters.
Hmm,
I feel like
I
you're
get
particularly good at that because you substituted the names of your characters, yet
yes.
as soon as you gave me their names, I like even before you gave me their names, like, and you
Yeah,
substituted like Story Eyes and Golden Boy, I still
yeah,
felt like I knew them, even though I didn't know their names. And when their names came up in the chapter, I immediately been like, I was immediately like, that's Golden Boy or that's
yeah.
Story Eyes. I wasn't confused, like, huh, who is
Mm,
this? Like I knew because even though that they have two different names, like Story Eyes and
Golden Boy,
Nate,
yeah.
like Starry Eyes and Golden Boy doesn't have like it's not a name that I can associate with the character because I don't know their real name. I still picked up on their mannerisms, the way they dress,
Yeah.
the way they're talked. So like I feel like subtext in your book was really well because I knew that the character was that character without you even telling me.
Oh, that makes me so happy to hear.
Mhm.
I put a lot into my writing my stories. So whenever I hear like really positive feedback like this, it really just makes me so much it just makes me really happy and yeah. Thank you.
So, what is the book or authors who had the most influence on your writing?
Okay. So in terms of authors uh,
Mhm,
both in and outside of Wattpad. I would say outside of Wattpad,
mhm,
the author who had the biggest impact on how I write, especially with my BL books, would be Patrick Ness. He wrote like The Rest of Us Just Live Here, The Knife of Never Letting Go,
mhm,
Monster Calls, those type of books. And his books are so uniquely written and they are so it's just him. Like you can just it's so beautiful and
mhm,
you just can see everything. You can picture it, you can visualize it. You're in the emotions with the characters. That's what I really love about his writing and I think that inspired me to also kind of bring that to my own books. And then in terms of on Wattpad, I would say the two
mhm.
books that I read, like, when I was first starting to read not when I was first starting to
Continue to
read
read.
BL, but would be
Mhm.
Give Me Therapy and Solving for X. I don't know if you've ever read any of them,
I have
but they
not.
are really okay. They are really good short type of books, which is kind of what Apollo is, a very short story.
Mhm,
Um, those books are very similar in that way, as well as like the short chapter writing, but
mhm,
giving you so much emotion. And I really love that about those two books. And I think I brought a bit of that into my writing when I was writing that story.
mhm. So, what
Yeah.
was your hardest scene to write in Apollo?
The hardest scene to write was the scene that everyone tries to kill me for, which would be chapter 6, where his dad dies. And I get it. Lots of people go in thinking, "Oh my god, she killed Starry Eyes. She killed him." um, but jokes aside, that story, I mean that chapter particularly is very difficult for me because I wrote it with my grandmother in mind, and
Mhm,
she had just passed away about a year before. So very much in a, I was still very much grieving her.
mhm,
And that chapter was really hard for me because I was writing out what I was feeling, like my emotions
mhm,
at the time. I was putting them into words, and it was just difficult to see how like how angry and how self-destructive my own personal actions were towards myself. Because, like I said, I put a lot of my own experiences and feelings into what I write.
mhm,
So it was just very difficult to see that because it's like I kind of had to look back on my own actions, on my own, emotions,
mhm.
and it's just very difficult.
I understand, like, cause I do that too, where like not necessarily people I have lost due to death, but people I have lost due to life and us growing
Yeah,
apart. I typically can like that part of me that feels that way typically can express that onto the page. But the hardest scene for me
yeah.
to read in your book was actually the scene. It wasn't actually supposed to be. I don't think it was supposed to be a very um like a sad scene. I think it was supposed to be cute and quirky.
Bottle?
But it's when I don't remember which character fell onto the other character, but I know they fell onto each other,
Yeah.
and and then the mother walked
That's
in,
chapter 8.
and that That hit me, and I actually did cry. I cry a lot. I cry when I'm mad,
Oh,
when I'm sad, when I'm happy. I cry all the
yeah.
time. And that hit me in another way because something very similar, I can't say that, but something very similar to that happened to me before. And then
Really?
me and that person's not friends no more because of that incident. So
Yeah.
that just remind me of like that just made these characters feel all the more real for me, and um it made the characters like it really highlighted like this could go very wrong for them.
Yeah, this definitely. I actually, when I was writing that, I obviously, I never pictured it that same way that you did. And I think that's the really wonderful thing about writing is that something as
Mhm,
simple as that scene that's not even can really have a different impact on everyone,
mhm,
depending on who you are, what your experiences are.
mhm,
And also, while we're actually talking about that, I think one of the scenes for me that was also really difficult to write was
mhm,
the scene where he finds Apollo's shirt inside of his cupboard and he starts to like freak out. It was the point where they stopped being friends for a while, and
mhm,
his mom came in and he kind of like comes out to her. That was really emotional for me to write because, like I said earlier, I come from a very conservative family, so I just know that if I was in that situation, which technically I am, I would never be able to come out that way to my family because they are very conservative in the way that they're
mhm,
not accepting of that thing. And my mom has said before that, um, I would disown any of my kids if they were this way. And
mhm.
it's just a hard thing to hear because you know that you could never share that side of
Sure,
yourself
yeah.
with you.
It's
So
like that
for
big part
me,
of yourself.
exactly. So for me, in writing his mom accepting him was kind of what I would always hope to get from my own mom.
Mhm,
And yeah,
mhm.
that was hard.
Mm, now that we're actually talking about it, I do have a like with my mom's side of the family, like they don't necessarily care about that. They're very liberal.
Yeah.
So when I was like, Mom, I'm bi, she was like, I know. She literally said, I know. And I was like, how did you know? She was like, trust me, I know my kids. And that was like not a
That's
big
sweet.
deal. But on
Yeah.
my dad's side, it
Oh,
is yeah, like it is not. It's very complicated.
yeah. I think the worst thing for me is that it's complicated on both sides. Like,
Yeah.
there is no acceptance from either side. So it's just very difficult to find people in your life who you're close to confide in. And
Mhm,
also that's one of the reasons I wrote Golden Boy as such a character who is scared of kind of expressing his emotions because
mhm,
you never really know who's in your side. You never really know
mhm.
what's gonna happen if
'Cause
you express certain
if you tell the
emotions or
wrong
certain
person, that's it.
exactly.
Like everybody's gonna know because
Exactly.
it only takes that one person to just not ruin your life, but to make your life a lot more difficult than it was before.
Definitely, yeah, I agree. So, yeah.
Did you hide any kind of, let's say, little nuggets in your book that few people have found?
Like, in what way do you mean that?
Okay,
Like,
so for me,
mm,
um, in my book, there's secret messages,
oh,
in each chapter, and that gives you a
yeah.
bigger, better piece of the story. Um, for another author, it was that she actually has an interconnected universe that she has told nobody about,
Oh,
and you can
yeah.
and characters appear from other novels. It's just she doesn't name them, and it's like a passing thing. So, do you have something like that?
Okay, that's I do actually, and only one person has picked up on it because
Mhm.
you would have to have read my other work, The Way You Feel, which is still ongoing, but um I did name one of the characters in there. Like one of his old friends was actually this boy. from the other book, and only one person has picked up on it so far, which I find so funny because I thought people would clock me for that so quickly.
Mm,
But yeah, that's like the only, I would say, nugget in my book.
mm,
But yeah, there is that connectedness between the two books, but it's a very vague connection that yeah.
mm. Hmm. Interesting. I really love when authors do that because I love to do that. Like, I have secret
Yeah.
messages, I have hints to other authors, to other books, to
Oh,
other
I love
characters.
that.
Like, I just love to do that. So I'd love to see if another author does that because I would really look for
Yeah.
them or like 'cause sometimes I have months where I just reread books instead of reading new ones because
Yeah.
I loved how old books make me feel. Um,
Oh.
so I'll look for those nuggets that people tell me like, I got something in my book. So I actually look for those. Um, Unfortunately, actually, this is our last question for this podcast.
Oh.
But I'm probably going to read some of your other works, like I often tell the other authors, and then we can have you on here again. But
Oh my
um,
god.
for our final closing question, um,
Yes.
is there any future projects that we can expect from you? Um, like, what is your schedule for the future? What books do you plan on releasing? Could you tell us a bit about
Okay.
that?
Yes. So in the future, so right now, as you know, I'm ghostwriting and it's taking up a lot of my writing time that I have in my life right now. So,
Mhm,
but what I really hope to do, as soon as I'm done ghostwriting what I'm writing right now, is to complete my other ongoing book, and as well as finish the one that's in the drafts and kind of
mhm,
release that for people to read, because that one I'm really excited for people to read.
mhm,
Um, yeah, and then also do more poetry, write more poetry. That's
mhm,
kind of a goal that I've set for myself this year because poetry has helped me through my hardest times in life. So I just want to get back into that. So yeah, those are my little future projects.
mhm. So I want to thank Riggles, the author of this amazing book, Apollo, for being on the podcast today. And I definitely have her links in the description below. And sometimes I have them on the screen if I remember. Let's hope I do. So thanks. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. This was really nice. It was really nice talking to you,
Thank
and
you.
um, it was nice to answer some questions and get some certain things out there.